Fox in a microwave and approach, focusing on stalkers one by one.
Coming in from every single angle. There's a Time Warp, but look at this concave, this crescent moon.
The fight, this is what's gonna happen now. The supply goes in Huck's favor.
He's just gonna barrel through, take out whatever. So much file here coming forth.
Looking like Nesty is gonna take it here.
Dancing the roaches a little bit. Scarlet.
Now the Hydras are exposed. Those Vita's gonna die, and it's not really gonna make that much of a difference. GG.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from New York City. You're watching live coverage of WCS America, the Challenger League. This is the final day of Season 1. I'm Axel Toss, Joe Axelov. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's kind of exciting to see the Challenger League round to a close. Of course, we've already seen 30 players qualify for the Premier League of Season 2. There's 2 more players who will qualify tonight.
2 more.
And man, the group is pretty interesting because we've got we've got talent from actually pretty much all over the world. Of course, we've got some American talent, New Zealand talent, and of course Korean talent.
Of course, we'll get into a conversation about all that very quickly, but first, let's talk about what happened tomorrow. The 2 players that qualified were Jaedong and, of course, Jim. There's a Reddit thread that said Jim Credible qualified for Premier League Season 2. Jim is so good. I'm really excited to see how he does in Season 2 Premier League, how he stacks up against the top players around the world, honestly.
And I mean, I think he's got a very good shot. I mean, Jaedong, of course, is a very well-respected Zerg player. He got second in DreamHack. And honestly, Jim just dismantled him. It looked like Jim didn't have a problem at all dealing with Jaedong. Both those games,
so smooth.
as soon as it was even, and then the engagement occurs, and Jim's micro is just perfect. And he barely uses anything.
Yeah.
And honestly, both those games, he barely lost any units in those engagements. Just the force fields and this is. It's actually amazing to watch him play. It's almost even more impressive than watching Party in Force Field, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a great display of skill. And I think I was reading a statistic somewhere. For Chinese players, 4 for 4, as far as qualifying for Premier League. XY, Max said, Jim, and who?
Top.
Of course, how can I forget Top?
And Top struggled though. Top was the one. Max said and Jim went through their groups cleanly. XY lost to Huck, then was able to sneak back in.
Okay.
And Top lost to Minigun and was able to beat State in the deciding match. So it's not like the old crews through easily, and not to mention the fact that not a single one of them made it through the bracket stage. They all suffered defeats in the bracket stage. Jim was to Scarlet. I think Top was it Killer or was it? No, it wasn't. He actually beat Killer. It was the round after that.
I have to look at my
But anyways,
notes.
it's not like they've totally mopped the floor, but they've all made it through. And Jim has been the most impressive, only dropping 1 series to Scarlet. Otherwise, no one else has even lit a candle to him, including even Jaedong.
Yeah, Jim and Jaedong will be in WCS Premier League Season 2. Looking forward to that, see how they do. Of course, today we got Suppy, Wongston, Illusion, and Telia currently waiting for the players to do their vetoes. Suppy, where are you? Get online. Of course, this is a pretty cool match. This is a pretty cool group. Like, just looking at our director was telling us, the Zerg, Protoss, Terran, and Random. Everyone is represented here, which is pretty cool. Of course, I think Telia, I think she might just flip-flop between Terran and Zerg.
I haven't seen her play Protoss.
Right.
She is, and she mostly race picks, so it's certain matchups she prefers. I remember she lost in the bracket stage to Kapach, was it? It was a Protoss.
Kapach. 1-2.
And she won the game that she played Terran, and then she played Zerg 2 games, and she lost both of those.
Remember that game?
Well, the one she won or the one she...
When she won.
I remember one of the ones she
Planet
lost.
S. Wasn't it the big bunker container?
Yes, I remember that.
Cool.
It was something like 12 bunkers with like 7 siege tanks behind it.
3 or 4 missile turrets.
Yeah, and Kapach was sitting near his base. He's like, how do I get through this?
That's the thing. Why defend your side of the map when you can just build all your things outside of your opponents?
Yeah. And then the whole map is yours, and they can't go past 2 bases.
Exactly.
It's a brilliant idea. You know what?
What's that?
Next step is you just go CC first, and your opponent's natural.
Planetary it up.
Planetary it up, and then what are they going to do, huh?
Oh, why stop there? Put a command center in their main, too.
That's right.
Boom. next level metagame you'll only be hearing here on WCS America. We got you covered, of course. Talk about the matches a little bit more in depth here. Suppy versus Hwangsin is going to be starting us off today. A little bit about these two players. Suppy, of course, that Evil Geniuses Zerg players kind of came out of nowhere. I remember the day he joined Evil Geniuses. One of the surprise stories. Something you might compare to like Xenocider joining Evil Geniuses as far as, okay, sure, you know, we got a great up-and-comer, but not a lot of people necessarily predicting that it would happen. And then in the year following his joining of Evil Geniuses, he has been shining bright like a diamond.
Yes, he's one of those guys who every tournament he goes into, a lot of times people count him out, and then he does surprisingly well. I mean,
right.
I think the biggest success he's had, I would say, he's had a couple of them, was in the Blizzard World Finals of 2012, where he made it through his group, and then he even won the first round in the playoffs, and in his second round in the playoffs, he's up against Party. And he went up 2-0 against Party.
2-0. He's one win away from advancing to the next round, guaranteeing himself like $10,000 something
minimum.
crazy.
It would have been top 4.
Yeah,
insane.
easy. Yeah.
And then he loses 3 in a row. Of course, it was best of 3 to 1, best of 5. Party goes on to
win the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
$100,000 or something crazy like that, and of course regarded as one of the best Protosses to play the game at the time. Probably still considered up there right now. So
top 3.
Yeah,
probably.
easily. It's a really cool story there from Suppy. And another interesting part is how he actually got into that tournament. Ostoji was actually slotted ahead of him, but then Ostoji had conflicts, I think, with finals or school or something, and Suppy actually took a spot and then was able to make that happen. So that was a really cool run there from Suppy. And then another thing that a lot of people, don't necessarily know about Suppy is that he's in college right now. Right?
Yes,
he's at UC Berkeley, one of the best schools in the United States, without a doubt, and of course performs well there, and he plays for the CSL team.
That's right. He's their ace, and that was one of his accomplishments. He led that CSL team. They actually won the most recent CSL tournament, and he was one of the key figures there. Won his both regular matchup, and then he played him in ace again. And he won that one as well. So definitely, kind of a figurehead of college esports and also professional esports at the same time, which is very rare for an individual. There's a couple other players like that. Hello Kitty. Plays for CSL. Polta is in college. I don't think he doesn't play for CSL team.
No, I think like there's like rules where you can't have been on you can't have been in a team house environment or something like that. There's specific rules as far as whether or not you can participate in the CSL. But yeah, no, Suppy's one of those guys that's really fun to watch because you can kind of relate a lot to him as far as, I feel like most people watching StarCraft 2 might be in college, might be trying to make it as a StarCraft 2 player, and Suppy's a good example that it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible to balance, both education and StarCraft 2 at a very high level. So Suppy also made it to the round of 16 of WCS America.
Yes.
Premier League Season 1.
He barely lost.
Barely lost.
16.
He was here in New York City, and he beat Revival. He beat Revival in the first match they played 2-1. Revival went on to get second in the entire tournament. Of course, traveling all the way to Korea.
And you only had that chance because it came down to that deciding match. Of course, the way the groups work, Suppy beat him the first time, but ended up they were both in that final match.
Because Suppy went on to lose to Hero.
Yes.
0-2.
Yes. And then Revival ended up winning the deciding match. And Suppy, it was back in the Challenger division. That's why we see him in his group here today. Of course, the first match we saw is he's going to be going up against Hwangsin.
Yes.
And Hwangsin's a guy who, of course, he plays for Quantic now, I believe. But he's a pro gamer from Korea. And one thing that is very notable about him, he played in 2012, I think he attended almost every MLG. And the vast majority of the ones he attended, he was making like top 6, top 8. He was performing better than almost anyone else. Because these are tournaments where there's literally, out of the Code S lineup, he had about 20 Code S Koreans at almost every single MLG last year as far as the championship circuit events. And Hwangsin was taking out 1 or 2 of them and then getting that top 6, top 8 spot, which is insanely impressive. But then in the last tournament, 2012, and of course in 2013, he hasn't showed that same level of success yet. So can he kind of refine that success he found when it was it's Gosu, or is that something that is going to be just in the back of his memory and?
Yeah, I mean the story of Hwangsin is actually really fascinating. One of those players that actually was one of the first Koreans to leave Korea and come over to the States and join a non-Korean team. Of course, at the time in the form of It's Gosu, and he's also a guy who actively posts on Team Liquid. Not necessarily actively, but he'll go there time to time. He'll type some stuff. And there's actually a little bit of controversy or a little bit of newsworthy actions happening as far as Hwang Sin was doing a lot. Like, he was kind of known for his 2-base play. He still kind of is, and a lot of people were giving him a hard time about that, which is kind of silly. But Hwang Sin actually went on and replied on Team Liquid, and he's like, writing a good paragraph or two in English, right? This is Hwang Sin from Korea, coming over and jumping into the non-Korean scene, joining its Gosu, and then participating actively on, the core forum base in the Western scene. And, he's actually typing out to the people who are criticizing him, and he's saying, like, hey, guys, I'm sorry you feel that way. And you can really putting a lot of thought and putting a lot of his heart into actually posting on Team Liquid and trying to defend the way he plays, which you shouldn't have to do because...
No, I mean, the players should play to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever gives you the most chances
that blew
of success.
my mind. Yeah,
it's,
but it's super, super cool to see him, really
very
reaching
involved
out in the community and really working on English too. Like, if Hwang Sin's a guy, one of those Koreans at an event, if you go try to talk to him in English, you will be able to have a conversation with him. He will be able to, communicate with you. So if you guys are going to MLG Anaheim next week, take advantage of that. I think Hwang Sin is going to be there, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not 100%
He's
sure.
on Quantic right now. I like to call it the zombie Quantic because it's back from the dead.
I mean, he used to be on It's Gosu when It's Gosu merged
with I think Fortnite and then the old Quantic group. So still a part of that core group of people. But it looks like our players are finally in the lobby. Suppy, thank you for showing up. You're awesome. And it looks like they're ready. It's going to be Suppy versus Hwang Sin. Game number 1 is going to be on Whirlwind, a Protoss versus Zerg. And again, these are the two. I mean, every single player has a story, right? Every single player has something that they're kind of known for, and, and they've made their mark in the community. Both these guys, no shortages of storylines here, of course. Oh, excuse me. Suppy, interestingly enough, if you look at the players he's played in WCS America, it's actually a little bit crazy. Here, listen to these names: Heart, Ryung, Revival, Hero, Revival.
That's insane.
And round 30 on 60.
And the fact is, he won 3 of those 5 series you just mentioned.
Yep.
Or no, it's not 4 of the 5.
3.
Or 3 of the 5.
Yeah, he lost to Hero and Revival to be knocked out around 60.
Yes. He beat Heart, Ryung, Revival.
Yep.
Then he lost to Hero, then he lost to Revival.
3 in a row, and then lost 2. And then he lost to Puck in the Challenger League bracket stage. Puck, really well played there. We'll see what happens here. Of course, Suppy is going to try to be another interesting stat. Among all the players who were in the round of 16 of WCS America Premier League Season 1, all of them have advanced back into Premier League except Sen, who is now in Challenger League, and Suppy. But we're going to see what happens here today. We'll have to see if Suppy can qualify for Premier League. A lot of people cheering him on. Of course, he is your Red Zerg player in the top left-hand location. Team Evil Geniuses. His opponent in the bottom left of Whirlwind. Your Blue Protoss player representing Team Quantic. He is Hwang Sin. Hwang Sin actually qualified for WCS America Challenger League through the qualifier. And he lost 0-2 to Go Caesar, so he has yet to win a set yet in WCS America. But who knows, maybe he can turn things around here and get into Premier. There you see his stats.
He's definitely a player who I think is going to be one of the contenders to get through this group. This is one of the most interesting groups as far as yesterday's group. Jim and Jaedong were the obvious favorites to get through. Right. Now, Drunken Boy gave Jaedong a big scare winning that game too, and almost taking Jaedong out. But in general, going into it, you're like, okay, Jim and Jaedong are the favorites to get through this group. This group, I don't think there is as clear favorites. Now, Suppy might be the favorite just for how well he played in WCS America Premier League last season. You mentioned taking out Ryung, taking out Heart, taking out Revival in the first set. And then, of course, his 2012 Blizzard World Finals run. But you're talking about Illusion and Hwang Sin are both very, very, very good as well. Very even group. And Tilia is kind of one of those players you don't know what to expect from her yet because we haven't seen too much out of her.
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of her play. I mean, who knows? Maybe she has... Like, again, anything can happen. We talked so much about that. I forgot what player we used as an example, but one little thing, one little score happened that took everyone off guard. I think it was Alive, maybe. Where he barely beats someone, and then he makes it all the way to Korea.
Alive versus Killer.
Yes, I think that was it. In round of, so
actually, it was twice for Alive.
Yeah.
He barely made it through the round of 32, taking out Killer in the final set. And then in round of 16, he barely made it out as well, taking out Pult.
Yeah.
Of course, he lost to Young, but he was able to win against Pult to make it through.
It's whoever is having a good day is the thing. And who knows, maybe this is Telia's day. That could very well happen. So a lot on the line here, guys, in the final day of WCS America Season 1. Looking at the openings so far, we're seeing relatively standard builds as far as Hwangsin going for a gateway expand and an appropriate response from Suppy as far as the fast speed is concerned, but keeping drones on gas. Oh no, okay. I thought he was going to keep drones on gas, but he only mined 12, and then he just stockpiling some gas up for later, but nothing indicative of any sort of crazy fast layer or something like that.
And of course, Suppy did get that get the speed.
Yep.
And that's going to be able to give him some map control. Hwangsin's playing the fairly standard follow-up. Oh, actually, I was about to say it, but a third gateway. So a lot of Protoss only had 2 additional gateways after gateway expanded to go up to 3, and then they added an attack building. Hwangsin's going up to 4. And that could just be because the ramp on Whirlwind's a little bit bigger. He wants to get a wall, and although his wall is...
That's a strange wall, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's got a hole with the Sentry Guardian, but he also has another hole.
And then if the depot is taken out, that's another one.
Exactly. I mean, he can add in a single pylon to cover the top, and then, of course, he can put a pylon behind a depot as well to solve that. But for now, there's going to be a couple holes in that. He is going straight to Twilight Council.
It's that SOS build, isn't it?
It is. We first saw this from SOS. It's going to be 4-gate Zealot pressure and then DTs behind it. But Suppy is going... He hasn't even built a third hatch yet, and he's already getting a Roach Warren. So I think he's anticipated this type of gateway pressure.
Maybe he saw this wall and he's like, dude, that wall is not going to work. I'm going to break that open. Because, again, the supply depot is one potential vulnerability. There's a gap where the sentry is right now. And, of course, that pylon, whenever you put a pylon in your wall, you're just asking for the Zerg to be aggressive. There's
some aggression here by Hwangsin. Suppy with the Roach Warren before third base is going to have Roaches out in time to deal with the Zealot aggression.
Yeah.
That third hatchery is going to be canceled, though, and that's never fun for the Zerg player.
20 Lings popping out, and the 4 Zealots going to start chopping away at that hatchery. Mothership Core going to provide that air support. No energy available as far as to activate any spells, but again, we'll keep an eye on that to see if he decides to recall out after taking down this third. And a lot of Lings popping out. 4 more Zealots warped in here from Hwangsin.
It's important to note that Hwangsin's on a very low probe count throughout this. He cut a lot of probes to get these gateways up this early.
I'm a little bit surprised that the Roaches are so delayed here from Suppy. 5 Roaches just now on the way, so just trying to identify exactly what's going on. Adding on 3 Spine Crawlers, that is natural expansion, going straight to layer. So... I'm not sure if this is something he planned or if obviously it's a deviation based on what he's seeing from his opponent.
The question is he going to recognize if there's a DT follow-up in action? Right now the Zealots are charging in, but Suppy has a great surround.
So many Zealots here from Hwangsin in the natural expansion to Suppy. 3 Spine Crawlers about to finish. The Roaches getting on the field. They need to kite away from the Zealots and the Lings, trying to get that damage done. But remember, Dark Shrine is almost done. This is just the calm before the storm for the Protoss player. He has a pylon right outside his opponent's natural expansion. Suppy needs to identify the Dark Templar play, or he's going to lose a lot of stuff.
Now, his lair is about to finish. He could get an Overseer, but if all 4 of those Dark Templar target a hatchery, it will go down before any detection can be available.
He doesn't know. DT's starting to slice away a lot of those drones in natural expansion. Still no Overseer in production. The layer is complete. Finally, we see an Overseer from Suppy, but these DTs doing so much damage, charging down the natural expansion now, not to mention the 2 DTs in the main, and they're going to try to track down some drones, but Hwangsin definitely taking Suppy off guard here.
A lot of drones have fallen. A lot of drones are being forced off the mining. DTs even escaping. They're realizing Overseers are on the way. DTs in the main aren't going to be so fortunate, but they're going to take out a... Actually, they're just going to kill all these units?
Overseer.
Overseer can spot it, but there's not enough to finish him off. Okay.
This Roach is like, send the backup, man. I can't take him on alone. There come his 2 buddies to help him out. Now, as things stand, he didn't lose too many drones. He did lose 13, but he still has 42, right? Compared to the probe count of Hwangsin, which is at 39. So it's like a dire situation where you're down 20 Harvesters or something like that. Suppy still with a decent amount of Harvesters compared to his opponent, which is good leading into this mid-game. But as far as who's ahead...
The one thing Suppy has to worry about is the fact that he doesn't really have any tech currently at his disposal. He doesn't have a third base. Now, this far into the game, the 10-20 minute mark, the Zerg player, you really either want to have that third base fully saturated or be going for some type of tech. And Suppy realizes that with his economy being set back like this, he's got to go for some cost-efficient play. He can't just try to overwhelm his opponent with Roaches and Hydras. So he's going for the Infestation Pit. That's most likely going to be for Swarm Host play, which is a great follow-up to your opponent going TETs. I mean, what does he have at his disposal? Zealots, Stalkers, potentially Archons, Morph TTs, all those are very weak against Swarm Hosts. He's not going to be very close to Colossi tech. He's not going to be able to feel a very big air threat as well.
Adding on 4 Spine Claws at his natural, I think this is a response to the Hallucinated Phoenix, because generally, when you're tech and scouting, when you're on 2 bases, Protosses might try to exploit that time where you're trying to get that tech up. They don't want you to build up. Also, Hwangsin has been on 2 bases for a very long time, and Suppy has an Overlord dropping creep at his opponent's third, so he's going to know when his opponent places a third down. And at this time in the game, when you don't see a third from your opponent, after the great start that Hwangsin had, you have to be thinking something scary is coming, which is why I think the additional Spine Claws were being added on there by Suppy.
Very, very smart. He also notes if it's 2 base to 2 base, Swarm Hosts are actually going to be very good against the Protoss competition, because to deal with the Swarm Hosts, you're going to want a lot of Claw Side, and there's no way Hwangsin can get that off of only 2 base when he's already invested in those early DTs. He's going to try to make this Sentry Immortal push work, but against the Locust, I mean, yeah, you can force field them away, but I mean, and you could kill them using superior range, but they just come back. They're free units, so you really need something else beyond Sentries and Immortals. That's why we see Hwangsin adding in this Rabok support bay. I think he just wants to deny a potential third base from Suppy. Make sure Suppy stays on his 2 bases.
Weakness of Swarm Host is lack of maneuverability. Hwangsin going for a War Prism and going into his opponent's main base, dropping 4 Zealots here, but Suppy still has some Roaches and Links from earlier. He's going to be able to deal with that. Great heads-up move there from Suppy. Swarm Host kind of overextending here. You don't want to lose any Swarm Hosts. They're so important, especially when the Zerg is restricted to 2 bases. Every single one of those Swarm Hosts is ridiculously important.
Indeed, they are more and more Locusts coming out here, starting to pick away the few of these Gateway units. Hwangsin's holding position in front of the base. He's going to try to beat the creep back. And one of the reasons why as a Protoss you sometimes want to be right in front of your opponent, even if you're losing some units to Locust, is because if you let those Swarm Hosts get across the field, all of a sudden not only can they damage your army, they can start damaging your economy and your bases. If you're pushed out far, then if you see a lot of Locusts, you can back away and wait from the timeout. If the Locusts are in your base, you can't back away, or else of course you lose that base.
We're seeing Hwangsin just biding time right now. Again, the more he can stall this Swarm Host army from potentially going across the map towards Hwangsin's cluster of expansions here in the bottom left, the more time he has to get out those Colossi, which are pretty instrumental in helping deal with the Locusts and the Swarm Hosts. We also have Blink on the way here from Hwangsin. Looks like he is going to be taking down that Overlord at his potential third base, so might try to take a third fairly soon. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that. Now the question is going to be, when is Suppy going to try to make some movements across the map? I feel like he should be starting to take that third fairly soon.
He factors Zealots denying the third drone escapes, and of course he can mop those Zealots up. Too much of a problem. There's a little warp in here in the main. That's going to be cleaned up as well. Suppy has some great defense, but all these attacks with Hwangsin, they're making sure Suppy stays at home, and you notice he didn't warp in units. Hwangsin knows he's only on 2 bases. He can't afford to just like warp in Zealots and just to keep Suppy busy. But what he can do is he can unload Zealots, and then he can just escape as soon as he sees that Suppy has appropriate amount of defense.
And just the threat of the War Prism in the main, you know, if you talk about player versus player, like maybe Suppy is taking an extra action to go deal with that. Maybe you're you know, there's a sense of trying to freak Suppy out a little bit. Also, if your opponent if Suppy is pulling units back into the main, guess what? Zealot the third, Zealot 9 the third are potentially going to be very effective because your opponent's maneuverable ground army is dealing with War Prism harassment in the main. So great heads-up move there from Hwangsin, just trying to spread Suppy out a little bit, really test his multitasking.
Suppy's definitely afraid to push out too much. In fact, the Locusts are out of position.
No,
the Swarm Hosts are exposed.
He sees it. The Observer sees it. Suppy has to back up. A pretty big blunder there. Not identifying where his opponent's Protoss army is coming from. Going to the top of the ramp, though. Going to send those Locusts back down. Has the Spine Crawler still on the high ground. Locusts need to go down the ramp. That happens to me a lot.
I'm actually surprised Hwangsin doesn't force foot off their ramp and take out. They actually already did take out a third with Zealots, in fact. So Suppy's only on 2 bases. The force fields are really preventing Locusts from getting into the army, and the Colossi with their range are starting to pick away at the Swarm Host.
Yeah, Colossus target firing down those Swarm Hosts. Great control here from Hwangsin so far in this game. He's up 146 to 94 supply. Some Corruptors coming forward, trying to get that damage to the Corruptors done to the Colossi, I should say. But the Stalker's going to start target firing down those Corruptors to get rid of those. And Suppy back restricted to 2 bases. Meanwhile, Hwangsin taking the third there at the bottom of the map. It's already finished, and his economy is about to be fantastic. I'm trying to think of what the options are of Suppy from here. It's looking very dire for him indeed.
It's definitely looking not so good. Oh, more Swarm Hosts running out. In fact, the whole Swarm Host army uplifted and ran towards the Protoss, and that's not going to work.
There's the GG, and Hwangsin takes victory in game number 1 of this best of 3. And that all started with the opening from Hwangsin. That's fairly obvious. Going for that forward gate aggression, really quick follow-up into DT play, a strategy kind of coined by SOS, and working very well. Of course, what's instrumental about that is hiding your intentions. A big part of that is not taking your gases at your natural expansion. Generally, a Zerg player, that's what they're going to be looking at. Because if there's gases at your natural expansion, they're like, okay, you're going to be taking up, you're probably going for DT. You know, that's one of the things you consider. But with the DT Shrine being much cheaper than it was in Wings of Liberty, it's doable to get that Dark Shrine off of only 2 gases. And of course, hiding that tech is very important as well. And after all that damage was done, I like the idea from Suppy to try to switch it up a little bit, try to go for those expensive units, but Hwangsin just playing too well to let that happen.
Really use mobility, the Warp Prisms and the Zelt Warp, and just keep Suppy confined on 2 bases until he could build up a couple Colossi. And once he had this, he just pushed in for the kill.
Really cool play there from Hwangsin. He's going to take a 1-0 lead in this best of 3. Guys, stay tuned. Game 2 between Suppy and Hwangsin coming up.